We are now.
Not
All right.
exactly.
Not exactly live.
Are we, not, are we centered or
We're
live?
not
We are
exactly.
centered and we are live.
I don't know if
Hey everyone.
Hey, what's happening?
We,
Hey guys.
we're a couple minutes late. We had some crime fighting.
Oh, we're in on Spider-Man.
Yes. That's all actually what we probably should have filmed is that Spider-Man was actually here.
I
That
have some of it
reviews.
on. I have
We'll
some
have
of
to
it
share
on.
that
Yeah.
later. But a real life superhero showing up is a lot more exciting than what we're probably about to do. And these old folks. But thank you everyone for tuning in again and for the feedback from last week when we did the very first of these and our series that we're going through. Our, I guess, can we call it a podcast? I know we didn't actually call it a podcast, but it's kind of like a podcast.
Kind of like a podcast.
It's
I think it's just
podcast-like.
Facebook Lives.
They're Facebook Lives, but it's podcast-like in that each week we get together and we're discussing a different song on the most recent album.
Yeah.
You get to call it what you want.
Last week we did the opening track, and it's now time for track 2. So
Dude, what is track 2?
someone's done their homework. Someone's done their homework.
Well, somebody always does their homework.
I could tell him the name of the second track, and he still probably wouldn't recognize it because it's a song title. Actually, this one he would recognize because we're here to discuss Kids on the Same Ride.
That's the album.
Oh,
That is the album.
That's
The
the
album.
album.
That's now we've finally. He stole my bit. Now I don't even have to explain it. Now people understand why we called the album and the documentary Kids on the Same Road. We wanted one song that Doug would actually remember, so we thought if we named the album and the documentary after it, that'll be the one that he recalls.
Sometimes he does. Sometimes.
Did we do it with the first album? We didn't, did we? There's not a song called It's About Time, is there?
There is not.
Okay.
Daggone it, Evan.
I know, we had an opportunity there.
Doug,
didn't
that
we?
was my song.
Really?
Yeah, and you had to learn how to play it.
So Kids on the
That's
Same
why I don't
Ride.
remember.
Actually a good jumping off point when we talked first album. This song has been around so long that at one point in time it was considered for album number 1. It's been, kicking around a while. For me, this is the sort of the linchpin song. There's a reason why we, title our album after it. There's a reason we titled our documentary after it. But we recorded a version of this for the first time probably early 2000s. The lyrics were written actually for the music that Doug came up with. A lot of times what happens is that Doug comes up with music and I go looking through my giant book of lyrics and try to find something that I get to fit.
Kevin's big book of lyrics.
Big binder of
I should have
lyrics,
brought it with me. I had it with me last week and didn't
We'll
even
save it for
reference
later.
it.
Yeah,
It's a good
it's
teaser.
okay. Yeah.
That's right.
Tune in.
Watch for it.
For Kevin's binder.
Book of lyrics. But this is one where he actually provided me with the music and I went and wrote the lyrics specifically to it. And that was in 2000. So this song at this point has been kicking around for about 20 years, even though it just came out last year.
I'm going to say it was wrote in the late 90s. So
The music?
Yes.
So you had that music?
So that music's been around because I remember I wrote, it was the first song I wrote on a Guild acoustic guitar I picked up somewhere because it was my first real major purchase as far as in a long line of expensive guitars since then. But it was the first, which I no longer have. But of course, traded or up or down or sideways. But anyway, I no longer have it. But I was living in Logan at the time, so I want to say late 90s, probably working at Fox WCHS at the time. So that's been a long time ago.
So music probably 98, 99. The lyrics were February 2000. And pretty much ever since we matched the lyrics up with the music, we've been kicking this one around in various projects, even when we weren't necessarily aiming for albums. There's many versions of this through the years. Interesting that and appropriate you mentioned that you wrote it on an acoustic because it came a long way from sort of where it started to where it finally ended up. I think one of the reasons, at least to me, why it was kicked around so long is that I felt like we knew we had a really special song, but we weren't quite getting out of it what we thought it could be. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah.
It is, and I think the way we function too is we have our demo process. We write the song, we work, and then we just kind of massage it. We don't have the ability to go out and pretty much workshop it. We don't do that. We don't play out. We don't see what works and what doesn't, or nobody was ever into that. you know, we don't see what works and what doesn't work, so it takes us longer to work through the song and even playing through it. I mean, if we were playing out every night, there's those reps of getting a song and then really getting tired of the song the way that it's done, and then trying to shake it up, adding a little bit of spice here, a little bit of flavor there, mixing it up. You know, that really just happens, you know, in a room like this. You know, in your basement or my basement.
And that's really...
And sometimes it takes 20 years to get that done.
It actually started in, you mentioned, I forgot about the fact you would have been in Logan, and so this probably really started in your old...
Yeah, this was it was my studio in the trailer, which was an old bedroom.
Yeah. That's how far back this one dates.
Put egg crates and whatever ridiculous I could find on the walls to dampen the sound in there. And
it seems like I remember a time from a version from that early time period, because really there's, you know, and we didn't really get into this in the documentary, but you know, just quickly, I guess it's probably fair to say that Storytellers Union as a project really started when Doug wanted me to start doing some writing with him, and it was just, hey, we're just going to do some writing. And you would sing on it occasionally if we thought we had something that, you know, let's see if Jerry can make this sound any better. And well, it's true. You would improve things.
I don't even know what to say.
You would improve
She's
things.
a cleaner.
But then there was a certain point when
You're a cleaner.
we did that
You're
for
our Kenny Omega.
Yes, like.
I knew it would happen.
But you wouldn't do this with me last week.
Because you didn't make a bullet cover.
But at a
Well,
certain
that
point,
doesn't
we
matter.
stopped,
Still.
and there was a period of inactivity. We did that for a couple of years, and then we kind of put it aside, and then came back to it, and that's when it actually became more of like, now let's get back to these pile of songs that are at this point several years along.
So glad you just went with songs.
Yeah, there was that other pile that we decided to separate from the pile of songs, which is what happened. We had this backlog that we let sit for a couple of years. We got together
and it became a real pile of songs.
The three of us would be in a band, and now it's like, well, of this large wealth of material, what do you want to work on as a band now?
Right. Yeah.
And this was one of those that made it. And we even did a version, if I'm right, for the first album, didn't we? We started
Maybe.
the idea that this was, you know,
there's still there's a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor that still needs a home from that first album.
and this was a favorite though, so I think that's one of the reasons we thought that, you know, we got to get that out there. But then we didn't end up going too very far down that road on album one. And part of the reason I think is, one, we weren't happy with the results we're getting, and two, I think we all liked the idea of it as being a title track.
Yeah.
Because even as we were making It's About Time, when we would refer to what comes after that, we would always call it Kids on the Same Ride. Like we knew that album, because for, you know, to me, the song title, it just made a whole lot of sense that it, even more than what the song itself is about, it kind of summed up us. Yeah. And what we were doing. And like, yep, It's About Time. We like that as a clever title for an album that took us 18 years to finally like put out and get together. Yeah. But for album number 2, it was always going to be called Kids.
Kids, yeah.
And I think that this was one of the like 2 songs we kind of tried and then decided, yeah, we're saving it. Mm-hmm. Because one, we had, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but with Close the Window on album 1, we also thought we had kind of our big ballad. You know what I mean? We had our yeah, the kids don't use the cell phone waving moment.
Fireflies?
The Fireflies on that one. And then maybe they were 2 similar types of songs, and that we would centerpiece it on album number 2. So when we abandoned the idea of including our debut, that's when we started referring to things as Kids on the Same Ride. Do you remember anything about how the song changed from that early version to what we ended up going with on album number 2?
Is it in your notes? Because I don't. I can't remember what the songs are called.
I do remember.
And I have like
was there a flute?
Short girl.
I will say that we kept beefing.
Short girl on a swivel issues. I'm just going to do this. There we go.
We did keep beefing it up.
Beefing it up.
I know that we mentioned last week with Jellybone that you know, we kind of would call this our Arcade Fire album. We had a lot of like epic sounding big songs, and I think that the version that we had of Kids that was very similar to the way we'd been doing it for a while, kind of, if I recall, we would listen to it and go, this is our linchpin, this is the title track, and it felt anemic in between all these big epic songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we thought it needs to stand out.
Absolutely. I think I know we did a recorded version of it, and none of us were really satisfied with it, and because we thought, okay, we missed something or lost something from that early recording. Like it didn't have or something, and so we kept trying, kept kind of going back to it, and then it was like, okay, now you're trying too hard, and I think we just kind of set it aside for a while.
We had these
and went on
lists
to
of
some other
like,
stuff.
these are the songs that were done, and these are the songs that still needed work. There was a time that the three of us had actually signed off on "This is done," and I think in a at a microcosm level, you listen to the song and we thought it was done. We heard it in context with all the other songs, and it didn't stand out the way we thought it should.
This was a Google like spreadsheet, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember because I do love spreadsheets almost as much as I love fuzz and wrestling.
I think the spreadsheet was for your benefit because
yeah.
that was the one way to get him to look at the names of the songs to figure it out. But we asked you to punch it up, and then we did a couple of different layers of vocals.
Mm-hmm.
We decided we need to build the vocals more, and then Doug did a mix that punched it up some as well.
Anytime we were doing this song live in the basement, practicing and things like that, this is one that, like, when we were doing it, we all clicked together, and like you and I were usually singing and looking at each other and kind of following each other. And I think when we were doing the recordings individually, and we didn't have that, so we actually went down to the basement and
sang that part together.
Yeah,
because that's exactly what happened. Is our
I
additional
hate to
vocals.
say that the passion came, by looking at one another, but no,
It was the
our
bridge.
vocals were missing something.
It was the bridge.
Yeah.
We sang together over the bridge so that we were more in sync as we were singing that part.
Yeah,
and then you punched
parts.
up the mix, and it got a lot bigger.
Which really kind of goes back around to what I was talking about before. That workshopping, that playing together. Like the reps of doing it out. Every night, changing it up, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. Instead of like when we used to try and record these songs and go in and say, okay, here's my lyrics, here's my part. Let me get this down. We got 2 hours to get this knocked out.
Yeah.
And
Well,
working on a deadline is not conducive to creativity.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're seeing like a live act, and you're especially like, oh, I know those two people are in a relationship or they're married or whatever, and you see them do a particular song that's maybe more personal or maybe more just slower or whatever, and you see, oh, I love the way they look at each other during that song, or you can tell they're in sync on that song. Well, the thing was, we were always in sync on that song in terms of some of those harmonies and stuff when we were doing it live, and then when we tried to put it on album again, it seemed like it just like, okay, you can't hear that.
Well, you're very good at following what I'm
Into
doing,
music.
and when you're not looking at me, I think it was harder for us to get that to mesh. And when we both
Yeah.
sat down there with mics and actually recorded the bridge part, we actually did at the same time. The rest of the vocals we had done like we did everything else, and that's when it started to work.
I can't see what it says because I don't have glasses on.
Hey, what's up, James? Thanks for watching.
James Hall.
But you just mentioned a ballad special song. It is to me, it was a special song. It was one of the reasons I wanted to get it right. We talk music, so lyrically, I wrote this when I was 27 years old. Which by the time the version that you all hear on the album, I was 46. That's a huge difference when you realize you're 27 years old and you're singing a song about growing old, which is essentially kind of what the song was. Specifically, what inspired the song, we had a couple of friends in our group who had developed some health problems, and it was sort of, I remember feeling like the bubble of youthful protection had burst a little bit, and that these are real world concerns. We're not kids anymore.
Time to adult.
It's time to adult now. People are this is actually a possible thing, that your friends can get sick, and these are things you don't think about when you're starting out like we did in school together and such. So that's kind of what the song was originally written about. And fortunately, those problems were not like major health issues in the grand scheme of things. They turned out they were manageable for the most part. We've obviously gone through more health issues with family and friends and that sort of thing, more serious issues through the years that Jerry finds hilarious.
Sorry, I'm reading the.
She's very sick.
I'm reading.
I can't read it.
I'm
far away.
In that way, I think that the songs actually gain
so,
more weight over time. That it's like means more now than it did what it was originally. They sort of changed their meaning over time. It was written about a specific set of circumstances, and then 20 years later, you look back on it and you realize, okay, what I was really writing about, it's more like our story now. It's not about that one certain period where I wrote it at 27, feeling old, all we're old at 27. I'm thinking if we're lucky enough to be playing the song 20 years from now, it might mean even more.
That's something to think about, yeah.
Who would have thought at 27 and you would have been 26 and you would have been 25? We got to make her turn her phone off before we start taking.
I'm trying to respond to our friends.
A blocker.
Yes.
Drop the phones in.
She does this every week. This is 2 weeks in a row. She's 2 for 2.
You guys have to learn that we had.
But
we gotta talk to our friends.
At 27, 26, and 25, we wouldn't have thought that in our mid to late 40s we would actually be putting the song out there, and I think that's why in some ways it means more.
Globally, where you can stream on all major streaming services.
That's right.
I need new wrestling shirts. Please stream us.
That's right. Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't think we're on Pandora. I don't think we've ever been accepted by Pandora.
Darn them.
Yeah, so don't stream us on Pandora. Well, because you can't.
But yeah, I think that even though the song was inspired by a certain set of circumstances, I felt like it's our the story of not just the band, but it's kind of the story of our group of friends, because there was some other people that I think of when I sing this song that we're fortunate enough to still be close to and still hang out with, and it's kind of us growing up and growing older together, which is kind of what gave us the inspiration for the video that accompanied it. When we did the first album, we used some old footage in a brief little commercial tease for that album. But when it came time to put a documentary together, when the idea came, like, if we start recording ourselves, we can maybe document the process of the album being made. And when we did that, it kind of grew from that to, well, we can just tell the whole story of Storytellers Union. And if you're going to do that, what do you want to call it? There you go. We already had the song that we felt was our summation of our story. We already had as our album title, so we thought we'll just call the documentary the same thing and tie it together as one project. And that's we used a lot of that footage to show the young kids, and then I guess this version, right, the current kids, and it ended up being one of the most engaging. Like socially, social media wise, the most engaging things we've done, music, video, or otherwise, is that people, I think, really related to the message in the song when they saw it play out behind them. They're like, oh, these guys have been doing this for a bit.
And thanks to everybody who made that possible out there, sharing and talking about it and just watching it. Yeah, that's very humbling to see those kind of numbers on any of our music, really, and especially on kids.
The sharing is what really got it out there to be viewed by a whole lot more people than would have probably seen it otherwise, and we couldn't thank everyone enough for that, because it really is a special song to us. We wouldn't have named the album or the documentary project and all that after it if it wasn't, and to see that sort of shared by other folks, that was special. It actually makes me think, somebody I'm not sure have we ever shouted out Chuck? Because I don't
think we have. Shame on us.
Because you talk about somebody who's been with us for a while, and I remember, we needed a sounding board. So Doug, you were sharing a lot of these early mixes. With him, and
I bounced a lot of stuff off Chuck. Chuck Mullins, how you doing, brother? Sorry we haven't shouted you out before now.
And this was what he's signaled out as his favorite too. So that's when we knew that we were onto something. That like, okay, maybe this is what we think that it could be. And I do think after 18 years of trying, we nailed the definitive version. It only took us 18 years.
Yeah, this one's, we can let people listen to this now.
But so thank you all again. We posted it last night. As Doug said, if you also go out there and use your favorite streaming service that you either stream or download from, you can do the same. And does anybody else have any other thoughts on Kids, the video or the song? Any memories of the lyrics or music that we want to share that we haven't maybe gone over?
No, I think we've hit it. I mean, I would just say from my standpoint, this song, because it had gone back so long and so it dated back so long, you know, I think I told you this one day, is that I always thought of it as, you know, you wrote this, it was you and your friends, and I was just kind of coming in to put in some backing vocals, you know, especially before Storytellers Union started. And then slowly it kind of morphed into, okay, I feel like I can own this song too, or that it just continued to grow, because, you know, at first it was just like, okay, you know, I was respectful of a song, especially if you're doing backing vocals on a song. I think you just have to be respectful of what somebody wants on the back of their song, and you know, so I was kind of coming in and doing my part, and then as the song continued to grow, we all continued to get older. We you know, formed Storytellers Union and everything. Then the kids on the stage, just literally one day I was like, oh, I think I'm one of the kids too, and it was just kind of those funny things where I was like, I think I'm on that ride with them. And
I've always loved when something can inspire a song, and then by the time the song is really fully realized, it means something completely different to you.
Yeah.
And I mean, it has very little to do with its original inspiration now, as opposed to the weight I think it's gained over the years, and hopefully will continue to gain. You know, if we ever do play out somewhere, this is one I can see I want slotted somewhere in the encores because I love it that much.
It's not about football.
That's
what I mean. That's what I'm slowly starting to hear tonight. This song is not.
It's about whatever you want.
About football.
It's about whatever you want it to be. But that's Kids on the Same Ride.
That's
and next week we'll be pivoting to one of Jerry's songs, so she gets to do some heavy lifting, talking about some of the inspirations that she had for River and Mud.
That's right.
And hopefully you will tune in next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Go stream Kids on the Same Ride, and we'll see you guys next week.
That's right. By the way, Yo-Yo, calling out Executive Suite. You're going to, at next song, we're going to do it together. You guys just don't know this yet. But at some point, I'm going to have a solo thing going on, and Executive Suite's going to lay down some lyrics on my track.
We'll explain it to Doug. We'll explain it to Doug off air, and we'll let the rest
That's my brother, and he knows what I'm talking about.
She's talking about football.
He knows what I'm talking about.
All right, we'll be looking for that for the remix. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Next week.